Photography is about life, and life is more about people and the environment that they occupy. What I wanted to do specifically was to create an archive that speaks to us, that then informs the future. I mean, people consume photography like daily, but then now the purpose differs from individuals. So for me specifically, I wanted to produce work that spoke to me as a person, that spoke to me as a citizen in South Africa, or in Africa rather, if I could call it so, that look at specific individuals who are supposedly meant to be part of the canon, but due to some politics in place or in space, end up not being included. When I speak of like visual activism, I'm speaking on a particular agenda that is aimed at undoing any forms of exclusion, or that is undoing any form of invisibility of some kind. So that visual activism is an act of consciousness done politically, to say that if there is protest and pride in South Africa, you need to have an agenda. So setting that agenda is to produce images that informs, producing images that conscientize the mind of those who believe that people are free or everybody is free. So no action or change will happen without tangible visual materials. Speaking of the body itself as a material, but also speaking of the body itself as a person or a person's body that has so much to tell due to experience. Currently, when you speak of the marginalization of a people, I'd say women will always form part of that group. Currently, there is a suffering. There's a lot of gender-based violence. You know, the country is in crisis. There are a lot of lives that have been lost. There are a lot of missing women. So that is like specific to say, living in South Africa, seeing that there are a number of lives that are being lost. What sort of action can you take as an activist with a camera, an activist with that recording device, and also to get a feel or listen to the voices of those who are suffering, or listen to the voices of those who have lost their beloved or friends or colleagues. So it's just one big example. Another example would be unequal education system in place. You know, education is key and it's needed, and it's a basic right. And we'll end up not having graduates or qualified persons due to the unequal system that is reproduced or that is structured to exclude, you know, the minority groups. Faces and Faces is it's black and white portraiture series featuring mainly women who love women, and also I'd say lesbians if people are comfortable with women who love women, bisexual women, and transgender folks. They are individuals who have transitioned from female to male and who are so dear to me and important, because these are the friends that we have known for some time, and people should be given that right or the space to express their gender freely without fear of being vilified. People in Faces and Phases are participants, they are not subjects. It's important to me that people really look good. So I think that collaborative process is to undo anything that would make people not look good. I mean, presentation is key. Decent looking, conscious-minded consent is very, very important. So I just request people to be part of that. And obviously, nothing could be done against an individual's will. So you need to be sober and be clear with what you are involving yourself in. What is important with Faces and Phases is every person's worthiness. To say I'm worthy, to say I exist, to say that I'm proud of the person that I am at this particular period or at the moment when that photo is taken. And also to share light with those who might not have any ideas of how we look. Because it's one thing to theorize LGBT lives in South Africa, it's something else now to see the people as they present themselves to the world. One of the daunting experiences, though, with the document, I'm talking about visual as a document, is the stories that people share, which once you hear them, it's difficult for you to carry on. You need to stop and listen, you know. And if you can't help, you need to refer those cases of some of the individuals in that particular series. Talking about composition of each image, there's some basic, but what is important is the gaze, the way in which each and every participant look back to the camera and engage with, because it's not like entertainment kind of portrait. You have to be deep, you need to engage with the lens. Between arrogance and innocence, those are two common words that I use when I speak to the person standing in front of me. Because also it's freaky, I don't know what they see when they look at me. So in that way, I lose control for a minute or so, being seen. You know, it's like bearing in front of people. What is it that they are looking at when they look at you? Is always my question, which is unsettling in a way. I can't say that I feel powerful at that time because somebody is overlooking at me. Whatever that I'm trying to hide is kind of like being seen without anything being said. So there's that connection of like, how do we relate to people as photographers or documenters without being passive about it? Where for some odd reason there's this honesty projected either way, if you have a soul or heart at all as the photographer. So it goes beyond just clicking the shutter button, but requires that moment of consciousness, which if it has hit you deeply, you stop thinking for a moment, or you stop shooting for days because something has been, you know, there's the exchange that is so hard to bear and express. Somnyama ngunyama, hail the Taklanas. Hail the Taklanas. It's in Zulu, and Zulu is my first language. Singing praises to my ancestors, to my mom, who's late, to my father, whom I'm his flesh or their flesh, to the universe, the presence, something that says one is worthy to be praised, but that starts with the person before other people say that now it's your time. So it's about like personal pride, which speaks on existence and one's resistance. I think as photographers, we need to connect with selves, you know, for once. Oftentimes, we document other people's lives and tend not to go deeply into selves or who we are and why we do what we do, especially if you're doing like documentary photography. The usage of mundane materials like a toilet brush, clothespins, those are for cleaning and people could relate to them. But because photography is projected in a very beautiful, sophisticated, sanitized way, especially if that photo is not done in a studio, then it becomes something else. So we're trying to capture images here that decolonize photography in a different way. To say that you could be anywhere, it's anytime. It's the content that counts and the message you want to convey. I'll tell you something. Some images I attribute to my mom, who was a helper or domestic worker. So in some of the images, it is clearly projected what I mean and how these images are produced or are done. Some of them are like a tribute to my mom, and then the other one is a tribute to my father. Then the other image would be a tribute to my brother. Because for each and every image, I don't look the same. And in different images, I look like different members of my family, you know, which then connects this Somnyama as a family document, also Somnyama as a living being in space. Increasing the contrast when the image is lighter and the image is between light and dark, it doesn't speak to what I want to achieve or to the message that I want to convey. I see more of a person than when it's lighter. Lighter could represent something else, and light as in lightness. And the darker we go, it has that depth and heaviness, and how the eye penetrates yours as the viewer. You engaging with that person differently. I think it's shared pain. Depends on how you relate with each portrait, you know. And also looking at the materials that I use there, which are like daily materials. We connect with those daily materials. It deals with like multi-layers, like a number of issues. And most importantly, relating to particular cases in history, and others dealing or relating to immediate experience, in which then I take photos to deal with whatever that is happening then. Some experiences are good, but then maybe the picture that is captured then does not look as good as the mood is, you know. Some experiences are bad, and then you find that the image that comes out of it is just too beautiful to connect with what is bad. Kwanele means enough, you know. And I mean, as a black person going through customs, there's a lot of profiling, racial profiling that our people face. So I can't say that it's only my experience, but it's our experience, where you are either dismissed or insulted. Its scale and minimalist approach to it is just enough, because you get the message without having to read 10 images trying to convince anyone, you know. So the scale counts, and its darkness and depth also counts. But all in all is the way in which I may like to create that dialogue that is not often there when seeing many images. Ethnographically, and also looking at the fashion world, it took time before people accepted black beauty in true sense. That's what maybe people at the time wanted to see, or maybe the advertisers thought that people should consume fairness. So nowadays we're taking ownership of our beautiful black skin in ways that we know how to, engaging with those who might thought of black people as the other or something else. So now we have a right to say that this is we, look at us with deep respect, and if you don't understand, do not limit my beauty standards into your own. But then I'm just saying lightly, without going deep into political blackness, without going deep into politics of blackness, and how the very same politic have really displaced black people. You think of, like, historically, we know how black people or black bodies have been caricatured. And we know how the very same black bodies have been branded without names. And the authors of such best-selling work project themselves rather than the people who are in the images. Obviously, this is a different kind of photography, and I can't hold liable those who are showing images, but I think that as photographers, we have a responsibility, you know, to name with respect, and also to date, understanding that this information is not only for us, but it's for future generations who will be curious to know where they are ancestors, their greatest have done for them to gain the freedom that they'll be enjoying in future.